Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of Attila the Hun, the most savage ruler you never knew you needed. I'll be taking you on a journey through the life and times of the infamous Attila the Hun, and trust me folks, this guy was a real trip. First things first, let's talk about the man himself. Attila was born in what is now modern-day Hungary in the year 434, and was the leader of the Huns, a nomadic tribe that roamed the steppes of Eurasia. And let me tell you, these guys were not to be messed with. Attila was known as the Scourge of God, which I have to say, is a pretty badass nickname. I mean, can you imagine introducing yourself like that at a party? Hi, I'm Attila, the Scourge of God. Nice to meet you. It's one of Attila's most famous monikers, and it definitely has a ring to it, doesn't it? But where did it come from? Well, the truth is, we're not entirely sure. There are a few theories floating around about how Attila earned this fearsome title. One theory is that it was bestowed upon him by the Roman historian Ammianus Marcellinus, who wrote about Attila's devastating attacks on the Roman Empire. According to this theory, Marcellinus called Attila Flagellum Dei, which means Scourge of God in Latin, because he believed that Attila's invasions were a punishment sent by God to chastise the Romans for their sins. In this sense, the nickname was more of a reflection of how the Romans perceived Attila, rather than something Attila himself embraced. Another theory is that the Huns themselves gave Attila the title Scourge of God. This theory holds that the Huns saw Attila as a divine figure, chosen by the gods to lead them to victory. In this sense, the nickname was more of a celebration of Attila's power and authority. Whatever the origin of the nickname, there's no denying that it adds to the legend of Attila the Hun. It's a reminder that even in ancient times, people recognized the magnitude of Attila's conquests, and that his reputation as a fierce and formidable leader was well deserved. So what made Attila so fearsome? Well, for starters, he was a master tactician. He led his army on a rampage across Europe, sacking cities and leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. And he wasn't just brutal, he was clever too. Attila knew how to play his enemies against each other, forging alliances with some and pitting others against each other. It was like a giant game of Risk, but with way more bloodshed. But Attila wasn't just a warlord. He was also a family man. He had multiple wives, which was pretty common for the time. But he also had a soft spot for his children. Legend has it that he even wept openly at the death of his son, which is not something you'd expect from a guy who made a career out of slaughtering people. Now, you might be thinking, wow, this Attila guy sounds like a real piece of work. What kind of impact could he possibly have had on the world? Well, let me tell you, he had a pretty big impact. For one thing, he played a key role in the fall of the Roman Empire. That's right, Attila and his Huns swept through the Roman Empire like a hot knife through butter, taking over cities and territories left and right. The Hun invasion weakened the Roman Empire by pressing other nomadic and tribal groups into the Roman Empire, weakening its internal civic character and forcing the Roman state to accommodate them and their needs. He subsequently invaded Italy, devastating the northern provinces, but was unable to take Rome. He planned for further campaigns against the Romans, but died in 453. But it wasn't just about conquest. Attila's legacy also had an impact on the way the world viewed the Huns. They were feared and respected, and their reputation as fierce warriors lasted long after Attila's death. In fact, his legacy was so strong that his name became synonymous with barbarism and savagery. You might be surprised to learn that Attila didn't die in battle, but rather in bed. Legend has it that he suffered a nosebleed while sleeping and drowned in his own blood. So how should we remember him? I think the answer lies somewhere in between. It's important to acknowledge the brutality of Attila's conquests and the suffering he caused, but it's also important to recognize his accomplishments and his place in history. Ultimately, I believe that Attila should be remembered as a complex and multifaceted figure who played a significant role in shaping the world we live in today. He was a product of his time, and his actions reflected the values and beliefs of the Huns and the world they inhabited.